order, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by invocation by Vice Chairman Jones.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father, as we gather today to do the county business, help us remember that we are so blessed to live in this beautiful country that gives us the freedoms to congregate and do as public will. Also, Father, we also give you great thanks for the bountiful rain that we receive. And bless those that haven't received their amount they desire. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. The chair comments today are centered around the activity of certifying the election, and it's the first item on our business agenda. But I want to thank all those people who participated and voted last week, or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, on the 5th. I guess it was last week. Anyway, long and the short is that very thankful for all the people who participated. Urge those who didn't find the time to vote to get registered and to vote. Your voice needs to be heard, and the best place to do that is in the voting booth. We will begin with our consent agenda, Commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This morning we have time for public comment. Madam Clerk, did anyone approach you to address the commission?
No, sir.
Anyone else here today wish to address the commission about anything that's not on the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move into the business items. The first order of business is the general election canvass, and we'll hear from Dory Munyon, the county clerk, and the chief election officer. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'd offer a motion to go into the canvassing mode.
To convene as the Board of Canvassers.
Right.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to convene as the Board of Canvassers. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? First order of business is to appoint someone in lieu of Commissioner Dwayne Dries, who's absent today. He has a proposed person here that's willing to serve, Kathleen Whitley. Is there a motion to appoint Kathleen to the Board of Canvassers?
So moved, Mr. Chairman. Second.
Been moved and seconded to appoint Kathleen as our 5th Board of Canvassers. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Kathleen, would you join us, please? Thank you for serving, and Madam Clerk, you have the floor.
Thank you. So the first thing we'll do today as part of the November 5th canvass is a canvass of the provisional ballots that were cast. In front of you, I've provided you each with a summary, the groupings of those ballots. So when we get all those provisional ballots, this time we had 669, we put those all into groups based on what the issue was with them. We then review each ballot, each voter, to validate their eligibility or not, and then group them and bring them to you so you can make a vote as to counting or not counting. So we're just going to go right down this list, and the first set of ballots we have is 216 ballots from C001 to C216. These voters were found not to be registered, or they registered after the deadline. And the law requires that a voter must be registered by the 21st day before an election in order for their vote to count. Therefore, I would recommend that these votes or these ballots not be counted this morning.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we not count C001 through C216 for the reason the clerk just stated.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to not count ballots C001 through C2016 for the reasons stated on our checklist from the Chief Election Officer. Is there any discussion from the rest of the Board of Canvassers? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, the next group of ballots is 29 ballots from C217 to C245. The registered voter had a different name on the poll book, and that was due to marriage, divorce, or a legal proceeding. So when they came to the polls, they had a different name than what we had in the poll book. They did complete new voter registrations, which is all that is required for them in order to count those ballots. There was nothing else wrong with their eligibility or with their ballots, and so I would recommend that those 29 ballots be counted.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'll move the approval for count for C217 through C245.
Second?
Been moved and seconded to account C217 through C245 for the reasons stated. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The next ballot is a voter who was registered but voted in the wrong precinct. That was at their insistence. We did get them to complete a new voter registration application, and they did vote the correct ballot, and I would recommend that that counts.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we count C246.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded to count C246 for the reasons stated. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Continue.
All right, the next section are all voters who have moved. The first group is a group of 328 ballots. These voters were registered and just happened to have moved or changed their address. So their address stated at the polls was different than what we had in the books. They all did complete a new voter registration application and voted the correct ballot. So I would recommend that those 328 ballots, C301 to C628, be counted.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve C301 to C628, reasons stated.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve ballots C301 through C628 for the reasons stated. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, the next group here is a group of 7 ballots from C629 to C635. These also were registered voters who moved within the county, but they happened to vote the incorrect ballot, and that was usually due to poll worker error. So for those, we would recommend that we count a partial ballot, which means that we would compare the ballot they needed to the ballot that they were given, find any differences, and then not allow them to vote for any races for which they were not eligible.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to approve for partial count C 629 through 635.
Second?
Moved and seconded to to accept and partially count C29 through C635 to make sure that they are only voting in the precinct where they should. My question to you, Dory, is that how are we going to discern which precinct they should have voted in as a board of canvassers, or are you going to do that?
We did do that. We can provide you that information if you'd like it, but basically we looked up their address in our street file, which tells us which precinct they should have voted in. And so we have noted in the detail, which I opted not to give you this time, but I do have details if you want us to bring those up.
So my next question is 7 votes within the range of any election this time around?
Within any race, no. To change any race, no.
Any further discussion on the pending motion that's been seconded? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
The next group of ballots were, again, voters that were registered but moved within the county and voted at their former precinct. Because they voted at their former precinct, we would also count those as partial. There are 2 of those ballots, C636 to C637.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve partially C636, 637, C637, I'm sorry.
I second it.
Moved and seconded to approve C636 and 637 for the reasons stated. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, the next group of ballots, there are 54 ballots. These are registered voters who moved from outside Finney County but within the state for more than 30 days before the election. These voters all were registered, but were not registered in Finney County. They were registered in another county. That is not protected by law, and they needed to re-register at their new address. It's my understanding the state of Kansas is a jurisdiction-based state for voting, and they were not registered in the proper jurisdiction. So for that, I would recommend that those 54 ballots do not count. C247 through C300.
Gory, those ballots, even though it's a national election, they won't count either?
No, there is a provision that allows those to be counted if they file a form in the county election office before the day of the election, and no forms were filed for these.
Any other questions? Motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would move we not count C247 through C300.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to not count C247 through C300 for the reasons stated. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The next 12 ballots were from registered voters who requested an advanced mail ballot. They either did not receive their ballot or chose not to vote their mail ballot and voted at the polls. But these ballots should count unless it's determined that they cast a vote twice. We did confirm that these voters did not cast multiple ballots. So I would recommend that the 12 ballots, C638 through C649, be counted.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve C638 and 649.
Second?
Moved and seconded to approve the 12 votes, 638 through 649. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The next 2 ballots are also mail ballots. The registered voter returned a ballot in an unsigned envelope or a signature did not match. For these 2 ballots, the voters did come in and cure the signature issue by bringing their ID and signing in person. So I would recommend that we count those 2 ballots, C650, C651.
Go ahead.
I'm waiting for Kathleen to offer a motion. Come on here.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve ballot C650 to C651 to be counted in the election.
Is there a second?
Second?
Did I do it right?
Been moved and seconded to count C650 and 651 as the voter cured the signature issue as stated from the chief election officer. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, so the next group of ballots is 3 ballots that were also mail ballots where the registered voter returned an advanced ballot in an unsigned envelope or the signature did not match. These 3 ballots, the voters did not come to cure the signature issue. We did contact these voters as required by Secretary of State's regulations. We contacted them multiple times, also sent a letter in one case for a couple of the older ones, and these voters did not come in to cure that signature issue. And so I would recommend that you do not count those.
Chairman, I'll offer the motion to not allow for count C652 through C654.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded to not count 652 through 654 for the reasons stated and further as evidenced on our worksheet. One voter stated that they are in Manhattan, would not come back to Garden City, and did not cure. The other voter contacted by phone to no avail, mailed the letter, voter did not cure the signature. Third, voter was contacted on 10/22, voter indicated they would bring in an ID and sign. On 10/23, called back and said they would not come back in. Is there any further discussion on the motion that's been seconded? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, the next group of ballots is 13 ballots. These were simply clerical errors, so when we looked up the voter in our system, we found some sort of anomaly that we needed to fix in their record. It could have been a hyphen in their last name or something like that, missing an apartment number. Basically, they should not have been provisional ballots because there was no deficiency in their records. So for that reason, I would ask that those 13 ballots from C655 through C667 to be counted.
Mr. Chairman, I move we count C655 through C667.
Second?
Moved and seconded to count 655 through 667, as there was clerical error and all eligible to vote. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So if you'll turn to the next page, flip your paper over. We've just got a couple more ballots. The next ballot is ballot number C668. This voter failed to provide valid identification at the polls and voted a provisional ballot for that reason. The law does require voters to provide ID in order to have their ballot counted. If they do provide valid ID prior to canvass, we are able to count that ballot. This voter did present an expired ID at the polls, but following Election Day, we made contact with that person on several occasions, and they were unable to provide a non-expired ID. So I have recommended that that vote does not count.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we not count C6.
Been moved and seconded to not count ballot 668, and we're going to have some discussion. The expired ID, was it a Kansas driver's license?
I believe so. Yes.
Showing a correct address?
We don't ever look at the address on IDs, simply because those don't stay up to date. So we always take what the voter says to us. I think she did provide a valid address.
So what are valid IDs? What is the list of driver's license, passport?
Concealed carry, any photo identification issued by a government agency. So like Finney County has photo IDs, we use those because we are a government agency. There's tribal identification cards. Doesn't have to be a Kansas driver's license, it can be a Kansas ID card. And there is a statute that governs that. I don't know if you want to look at that.
I was just curious about what it's.
I have a question from Commissioner Jones. Go.
Well, I must have been mistaken for years because I thought an ID, like a driver's license, was a valid ID even if it was no longer valid as a driver's license. So is this peculiar to voter law, or is this?
That I can't answer exactly. I know in 2020, we did make an exception and accepted expired IDs in 2020 due to the pandemic and the inability for people to get in and keep their licenses updated. But one way we validate people is to go to the driver's license website and put in their information and validate that they have a valid license.
I'm inclined to think that person's valid on account.
So do I, but we have a motion before the board to not count this ballot. Moved and seconded. We had a nice discussion. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Nay. Motion carries 3-2.
Okay, the last ballot on the list here is a mailed ballot that was received after the deadline. Any ballots that are received after the deadline or before the deadline without a postmark. The deadline for receipt of mail ballots is the last delivery of mail by the USPS on the third day following the date of the election. So we needed to receive all ballots no later than Friday, November 5th. When we received this ballot, we received it on November 13th, and the postmark date on it was 10/31, so it was mailed in plenty of time. But we did not receive this ballot until the 13th, so unfortunately, it has not been counted. Law does not provide a remedy for failures of the United States Postal Service, and therefore, I have recommended that we do not count this ballot.
Questions for the election officer?
Again, Mr. Chairman, I feel this ballot probably ought to be counted. It's not the voter's fault that the post office fails miserably to meet deadlines.
Well, this is not unusual. Sometimes it's quicker and easier to get mail to Wichita than it is across town. But at the same time, I think the election officer is following the rules. We didn't receive it until the 13th, and you only have 3 days, according to law, to get your mail ballot back. It's kind of a bright line rule. I am sympathetic to the voter. I agree with you, but we might get outvoted again. That's happened.
I don't mind being outvoted.
And, Mr. Chairman, if I heard you correct, and I'm just looking at my, it was postmarked October 21st?
October 31st.
Oh, 31st. Oh, okay, I misunderstood. Okay, so that'd be,
6 days before the election.
and that would be a little bit over a week to get it
Got
in,
here 6 days after the election.
get it in the office. Well, Mr. Chairman, I would move that we take our election officer's recommendation and that we not count C-669.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to not count ballot 669. Is there further discussion?
The only discussion, Mr. Chairman, is I know that our Secretary of State is trying to address that and was actively doing so before the election date.
Well, that doesn't change what the rules are
No,
today.
no, I know, but I mean, I know there's work going on to try to correct that.
It's on your list, Lon.
It's on his list.
All right, we'll carry the mail, and for now, we need to vote on this as a board of canvassers. All those in favor of voting no for the ballot 699, say aye. No?
Aye.
Motion carries 3-2. We tried to count the vote even though the mail failed. Those are your instructions, Madam Clerk. Anything else?
All right, no, I would mention that now that we have decisions from you, we've got a board here that will go down to process all of these ballots. And if you don't mind, I'd like to introduce the board that's here with us today.
Would you please?
First, we have Mr. George Salamanca Chavez, Claudia Ward, Elda Zapian, Beverly Schmitz-Glass, and Sandra Simmons. So we appreciate their help in getting out on this rainy day to process these ballots. I do anticipate that we'll need about 5 hours to get those done. So my recommendation would be to recess as the Board of County Canvassers and reconvene at 2 p.m.
Just don't send them back to us in the mail.
Exactly.
All right. Is there a motion to recess until 2 o'clock?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
Moved and seconded, the Board of Canvassers to recess until 2 o'clock, at which time we'll reconvene. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. See everybody at 2 o'clock.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Chairman, I'll offer a motion to reconvene as a regular county commission.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded to convene now as the Board of County Commissioners. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next on our business agenda is the Board of Zoning Appeals appointment. Is Elisa here? Yeah, she is.
She didn't walk out with the counters, huh?
She didn't volunteer for counting?
I did not. Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. What I have before you is a Board of Zoning Appeals appointment. So the Board of Zoning Appeals is a 5-member board that has one vacancy that is set to expire December 31st, 2026. Ivan Gutierrez was appointed to this vacancy on September 16th of 2024. However, he has since resigned and would be moving out of Finney County. Neighborhood and Development Services has since reached out to Clemencia, and she's still interested in serving on the board. Your alternatives this morning are the governing body may approve Clemencia Zermino, the governing body may not approve Clemencia Zermino, or the governing body may provide staff with alternative direction. And staff would recommend appointing Clemencia Zermino to this appointment.
Thank you. Commissioners?
You said she was moving out and then decided not to, or what? No.
Ivan was appointed, and then decided that he was going to be moving out of Finney County.
And he's in Johnson County because he met our son the other day.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we appoint Clemencia Zermino to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I have a question before we vote. Is that the only application you had for this position?
That is correct.
In looking at her application, she kind of applied for everything, every committee that the city or the county has.
That is correct. That's usually common for applicants to apply for multiple boards. To my knowledge, she doesn't serve on any other board that she applied for.
Well, I'm going to take this opportunity to make a statement I make every time. They're applying at the wrong building. That was a county job. They ought to be applying over here, not at City Hall. So I've now made my statement.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. It's been moved and seconded to appoint Clemencia Zermino to a term that expires December 31st of 2026. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
I'm not voting.
David Jones abstains. Motion carries. She's appointed to finish out that term.
Thank you. I would also like to add, I'm sorry. We did send an email out. As you're aware, we do have some vacancies on the Planning Commission that are either current or will be coming up for December 31st. So if you know anybody that's interested in applying, we have, reached out to several other jurisdictions and other boards to see if they know anybody that's interested in serving on the Planning Commission. We do believe it is a board that we need applicants that are familiar with some of the things that the Planning Commission considers, and we are losing quite a few members this year. So if you know anybody interested, or if they have questions, please send them our way. We'd be happy to answer those or get them the application.
Well, looking at the list, there was only one county appointment on that one,
On the Planning Commission?
on the Planning
Those
Commission?
is a multi-jurisdiction appointment.
I believe there was one at-large, one county position, and then two that would need to live inside the city limits. The one for the county position does need to live in the county, so there's some.
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'm going to ask if you would consider allowing Vicki to come to the podium as chairperson of that committee, and I think she has a little bit of insight.
We'll do that as soon as Alicia is done with her presentation.
Okay.
My only comment, Mr. Chairman, is, and I know we got it secondarily with regard to this, is each time someone comes to us for appointments to boards, is letting us know who the current people are on that board and what their term is and so forth, because when I got the original email, there was not that information, and so I wasn't sure, what we were looking at. So just not a huge deal, but just I think we need that information as we're making these appointments, so just
Sure.
throwing it out there.
Right,
So-
thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Charles? If not, then we'll hear from Vicki German, who's the chairman of the Planning Commission.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Vicki Gurman. I am currently Chairman of the Planning Commission and the Finney County Board of Zoning Appeals. As you know, I will be sitting up there with you all come January, so I will be vacating my spot on both of these. And I would just like to encourage you, anytime there are vacancies, to maybe not just appoint somebody right away because we have a vacancy. As long as we have a quorum, you know, I think it is good to give people an opportunity to speak out. This is not my position that they're filling right now, so come January, there will be another vacancy. There are 5 on the Board of Zoning Appeals currently. I don't know what their terms are, but currently it's, if I can remember them, Alicia, you might have to help me out, but I am on there, totally blanking now. I am the chairman currently, so they will need to appoint somebody as chairman. Butch, oh, okay. So Butch Liker, and his term probably is coming up pretty soon. I don't know whether he will continue on that. John Fort, and he's got probably another year or 2 on there. Bob Kreitzer.
So when we advertise as open positions, are they gonna mention your position will be coming up too and do them all at the same time?
There will be notification, yes, that my spot, and I have, you know, given, and I'm appointed, currently, I'm appointed to the Board of Zoning Appeals by the Planning Commission. They always like to have one appointee to the BZA, so probably for my spot, they'll just move somebody over into that. So I know Clemencia, you know, I think Clemencia would do a good job. But I don't know how urgent it is that we get, you know, somebody in there to fill that spot. There are a lot of challenges on that Board of Zoning Appeals currently with truck drivers wanting to park their vehicles. That's mostly what we see now. We used to, technically, we only meet when there is something that is brought before us. In the past, that might have been, you know, 2 or 3 times a year. It seems like we're meeting monthly with regard to the truck parking issue, so that is a challenge.
Other questions for Ms. Gurman? Commissioner-elect? Chairman of the Board of Zoning Appeals, Chairman of the Planning Commission. Now's your time, commissioners.
Thank you, Vicki.
You bet.
All right, moving on. Next, we'll hear about Finney County 2024-18 parcel plat. Please announce for the viewing public.
Good morning. My name is Dante Thompson. I'm a planner with Neighborhood and Development. The Livestock Nutrition Center is requesting to plat the LNC addition, generally located at 3680 West Jones Ave. The property contains approximately 4.997 acres and is zoned I-1, I-2, light to medium industrial district. The property is currently used as an agricultural truck and rail terminal, including a new grain bin approved by the site plan process in May. Although the new grain bin site plan was approved and the building permit was issued, the project will not receive the certificate of occupancy, which finalizes the project until the LNC addition plat is approved and recorded at the Register of Deeds. The third submittal was presented for review on October 29th, 2024, and met requirements. The Planning Commission recommended approval of the plat at the September 19th, 2024 meeting, which the minutes are attached. There are 2 alternatives in front of you. The governing body may approve the parcel plat, or 2, the governing body may not approve the parcel plat, and staff recommends approval of the parcel plat.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the partial plat.
Second?
Moved and seconded to approve the partial plat, Finney County 2024-18, the LNC edition. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Plat's approved.
Thank you.
Next up, waiver request for 2207 West Maple. Please announce for the viewing public, sir.
Good morning, John Persisto. I'm one of the planners with Neighborhood Development Services. Maria De Leon is requesting a waiver to allow more than one home on her property generally located at 2207 West Maple Street, Finney County, Kansas. The property is currently zoned RR Rural Residential and contains 2 acres. The property currently has 2 homes on the property. The applicant would like to be able to replace the single-wide mobile home that was once there with a double-wide manufactured home on Lot 4 of the property. The mobile home was removed over a year ago. There is an existing well and septic system that serves the property, and the new manufactured home will connect to these systems. The applicant stated in her letter that replacing the mobile home would be a better financial decision for them to purchase a newer manufactured home instead of making repairs to the existing one, and would let them stay closer to their family. The property is currently a non-conforming residential property as it contains more than one single-family dwelling unit. A non-conforming use is identified in Section 22 of the Finney County zoning regulations as any lot, structure lawfully occupied by a use at the time of the effective date of this zoning regulation or amendments hereto, which does not conform to the regulations of the district in which it is situated. The governing body has granted similar waiver requests in the past down below. Staff's concerns is that if a waiver request is approved for this address, there will be many requests that will come before the county commission, since this is a question that comes up quite often in the county. There are many non-conforming properties in the county that either have more than one dwelling unit on it or previously had a manufactured home that was removed, and they would now like to replace it with a new manufactured home. If the governing body chooses to approve this waiver, staff recommends the governing body require the new manufactured home to meet the RDMH standards, which is listed in section 23.080 down below in the staff report. There are 2 alternatives before you today. The governing body may approve the waiver, or 2, the governing body may not approve the waiver. And staff has no recommendation.
Okay, can you explain your reasoning as to no recommendation?
Just because it goes against our zoning regulations, that's why we don't have a recommendation for this.
Are there any particular facts that would cause you hesitation, and the suggested restrictions as part of the waiver items 1 through 9? Why was that put together as a requirement of the waiver?
Just so that whenever they move in that new manufactured home, it's a requirement that they meet the RDMH standards unless it's in a manufactured home park or a manufactured home subdivision. So it'll need to meet those requirements if it's not in a mobile home park.
All right. While the other commissioners here have the experience of the prior waivers, I'll let them ask the questions. I'll yield. Sir.
Mr. Chairman, John, thanks for presenting. I just want to make sure I'm clear from the narrative and what you verbalized, that there was a mobile home that's been removed, an existing home, double wide, that's on that property. Those 2 homes they're asking to replace with one home on the property. Am I understanding that correctly?
No. So there's,
That's the way I read
okay.
the second paragraph.
Okay, I'll explain it. So there was 3 homes on that property, lots
Okay,
2, 3, 4, and then,
that's not the way the narrative
Okay.
came to me, so that's why I'm trying to clarify. So there were 3,
now there's 2, and then they want to replace lot 4 with a newer manufactured home.
Lot, which one did you say?
Lot 4, the one to the
Oh,
north part of the property.
That's not
Yeah.
in existence right now,
Yes.
yeah.
yeah, right. Yeah, I didn't read the narrative that way, so
Okay.
I mean, I understand the map,
Okay, yeah.
and as far as lot 4 and so forth. Thank you. I think Larry was speaking, I don't know.
Yeah, that's,
It's however the chairman wants to do this.
Did you have anything else, Commissioner Jones?
John, we've always questioned these because of closest to the water source. It looks like the water well is on another property. So I guess there's some kind of agreement there. But,
Is that correct?
As far as the applicant.
Okay, Commissioner Jones?
Well, again, this is like a thing we considered here recently. I encourage people to drive by and have a look. The request, in my opinion, is consistent with the neighborhood. And they worked and worked on a single wide, and finally it became, according to the information we have, became a pit that you couldn't get repaired, and so they moved it out. Now they want to put in a newer or a new double wide. And I would be in favor of granting the waiver with the stipulations stated, but also limiting that waiver to the present ownership. And I will be prepared to offer that motion when it's appropriate.
And my question then to the county councilor is that if this waiver is granted, do we need to have it done by resolution so that we can record it to limit the ownership, to limit the waiver to the ownership? Or can we just simply grant the waiver with the condition that it's limited to the present owner?
So I guess the requirements that are there that you're asking that they conform to, I mean,
RDMH standard?
yes, the RDMH standards, thank you. Does that, and I haven't read them, I'm sorry. Does that make it a more permanent structure, or what does that do?
That's just one of the requirements that whenever it's not in a, like a mobile home park, it's.
I guess my question really is, if we're limiting it to the current ownership, and we're having this already on the property, what are we requiring of them, and how is it that is beneficial, limiting that to the current one?
So for the RDMH standards, what it is a residential design manufactured home, which is different than what you see in a park, which is usually have the skirting and the blocking. With the RDMH standards, it requires it to be on a permanent foundation so that it's not movable. It becomes more like a house that was built on site. So I think if you're limiting it to the current owner, and they meet those standards, that would be pretty common with the current zoning district that it's in. As John mentioned, it's not in a mobile home park or a mobile home subdivision, which allows them to have the single wide manufactured homes that aren't permanent. And so if somebody were to put one of those homes in any lot in this area for that zoning district, it would have to be an RDMH,
So realistically, if we sat here and limited it to the current owner, but we're making it a permanent structure versus the skirting, which can easily be removed, I'm not sure if that makes.
Well, kind of where I'm coming from is that this hasn't been platted, and you can surrender the certificate of title on the mobile home under that Kansas statute that allows you to convert it from personal property to real estate. And we don't have the limitation on title, so we're creating some confusion as to how this property is going to be handled with the mobile home owned by one person, the land owned by a separate person, even though they're family. I want to make sure that we are clear on what our requirements are and to whom those requirements apply. As Commissioner Davy Jones said, I'm not opposed to this as long as we add the restrictions, but when we do, it seems that we're putting the restrictions on the owner of the land, not the owner of the home.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, that's what I'm wrestling with, if we put restrictions on, because I think we're creating issues in the future, maybe unintentionally, but when it has to meet those requirements to be more on a foundation and so forth.
And you could always, waive the requirements and allow them to do a home with the skirting and blocking that makes it not permanent. And I guess leaving it as if they remove it, that home in the future, they could not put another one back if that's what you're looking to do.
You, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
you guys recall we had a discussion on another request for a waiver on a double wide? And the big deal was that it's supposed to have at least, 8 inches of eave, and the house that they had only had 5 inches or whatever. And we've got some regulations here that I don't know who wrote them up, what sense they make, but they're there, and if the people are willing to abide by those regulations, then I would offer the motion as I stated to grant the waiver. But only for the present owners.
Sorry, I just have one question. The one that I'm thinking that you're referring back to was the one that they were putting it on there and asking for it only to have to be there for, 5 years while they were,
No, that was a different.
or is that a
Yeah,
different
that's a
one?
different one. This one, I
Okay.
believe, was for their mother or mother-in-law on the property, and they had,
That mother-in-law, that house blew away in a tornado, and so there's no 2 houses there. That property's changed hands. That's in my district.
If we meet the RDMH standards, does that make it difficult to be able to move the home off of the property later, or how does that?
that I could not answer when and it'd be like moving a house. I don't know how hard or, it might be more expensive, I'll say, if they were to do that.
We have these rules that you can't have a mobile home that's older than a 1976 in the county,
In 86.
or 86, whatever. And you ask why, and they say, well, because that 86 and newer had some kind of a seal put on the side of by the door that it met certain standards. But I want to tell you that it may have met the standards at the factory. As soon as it got out on the road and started toward its destination, who knows what happened to it. So we got a whole lot of rules here that create confusion and problems, and I don't know that they fix them very much, so.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I would like to suggest that we table this until the next meeting and allow council and other appropriate people to check out the answers to some of these questions with regard to restricting it to current owners. I am definitely not opposed to the waiver, but it's these restrictions, I think we need to get some definitive answers before we take action.
If we went ahead and granted the waiver without the restriction to the owner, would you be in favor of that? As long as 1 through 9.
Well, I think
were
it makes it,
complied with.
I think it makes it cleaner from a standpoint of future potential issues, yes.
I do too. And so,
I'll withdraw that. The people want to put a mobile home in there and live in it, so let's help them out.
okay. And rather than limit it to the present owners, we're going to allow the waiver with the conditions of 1 through 9 as stated.
I'll offer that motion.
Is that what you want to do?
Yep, that's what I want to do.
Is there a second to that motion? To grant the waiver to the subject property with the conditions 1 through 9 as stated.
I want to make sure that everybody's clear on if you're making it so they meet 1 through 9, that is more on a permanent and not the skirting. Okay, just making sure we're on the same page.
I would second that.
Right, and my question to you, Elisa, and to the owners, is that satisfactory? All right, well, we heard from the owners, and they think they can live with those restrictions of 1 through 9. Is there any further discussion on the commission? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
Good luck,
with your new home. Next, we'll hear from Lana Duvall, President and CEO of the Economic Development Corporation. Good morning. Please identify for the viewing public.
Good morning, Lana Duval, President CEO of Finney County Economic Development Corporation. How are you? Hi. So a few things we're working on. We're continuing to work with the truck wash that you all heard about at the last meeting, helping him to get through his site plan process and get the information that we need as far as the effluent and such from what the truck wash will produce, so we can make sure that all of that can be accommodated on that site. While he hasn't requested, if you remember last time, we ended up in some conversation about how it might be possible for that project to get underway prior to the new road being constructed. Certainly no waiver has been requested and wouldn't be necessary so long as a development agreement can be put in place with that project. But I, will continue to work through that process. He is supposed to be closing this week on that property, so we want to make sure we don't put him in a situation where he's got an undue cost associated with holding that property while he waits to be able to produce revenues on the site, if you will. So that may come before you again for some further discussion, but we'll continue to work with them. On the housing front, I am testifying this Wednesday to the Special Committee on Available and Affordable Housing. Representative Tarwater asked that I speak kind of on behalf of the economic development world, if you will. So there's about a day and a half of testimony scheduled, and I will be talking more about how we can use local solutions to accommodate our housing versus the programs and policies that come out of some of the state agencies and the Kansas Housing Resource Corporation. So just finding ways that we can be a little more creative in our own communities because our communities are different and one size really doesn't fit all. So again, I'll be doing that on Wednesday. And then working on some multifamily solutions. As you guys know, we have pretty huge numbers of housing units that we need to hit by 2030, and we're just not going to be able to get to 4,000 units without focusing on some multifamily development. So we've been having some conversations with local banks, the community foundation, the city, looking for creative ways that we can get some of those multifamily projects over the hump, if you will, and get those in place. In higher education and workforce development, we're working with Garden City Community College on a potential grant for building trades program. It's just, the information's just now becoming available. That application isn't due until January, but we've started work on that and gathering information on how we could make that grant work for our community. And then additional work with the building trades program, and they've spoken with you about their need for additional building and faculty for that. So we're hoping we can find some ways to get some additional funding into that program. Also working on secondary education degree training. We've got really good coverage for elementary education through Newman University, but we really need some focus on that secondary education that allows for the high school teachers as well. So we'll continue to work through that. And then on ag careers, we're always working, obviously, on finding additional opportunities for those. So working with Garden City Community College now on a feedlot certification program, as well as agronomy programs and an ag technology management program through Newman University that's received some federal funding to help get that launched in the community. And then on quality of life, we did get to announce the Icon Theater and Entertainment Complex that is slated to be out northeast of the Walmart Supercenter. Interestingly, that project has the largest social media response to date, which is super interesting. We talk about it all the time that, we announce big projects like an Empirical Foods, for instance, and while people are excited and recognize the value of it, it's always the entertainment and the food and the shopping that really gets people fired up. So that's okay. We're excited about it too. It's going to be a good project. We are working on pretty significant additional retail attraction as well, and some additional quality of life amenities that would be kind of adjacent out there. So, any questions that I can answer?
You broke ground north of Walmart. What is that? The theater?
No.
That's all right. O'Reilly's, isn't it?
Yeah, up on Mary Street, yes, yeah, that is an O'Reilly Auto Parts, on 1 acre up there. And then there's still 14 acres in that parcel adjacent to that. No, sir, the theater will be on Beyond, just past the electric substation on Kansas Avenue. So what we would have referred to as Highway 156 will be East Kansas Avenue expansion going that direction.
I thought you were talking about the empty ground right north of Walmart.
Nope. Nope. We are doing some projects on that right now, but that is not this particular project.
How many acres that theater complex idea to take up?
Yeah, so his contract is for 7 acres. Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna have a technical problem. Can we do something about the battery in this mic?
It's
Yeah.
like a little drummer boy.
I didn't do it, I promise.
Might be right on.
I don't think it's a battery.
I think it's in the speakers. Probably water getting into the speakers.
Well, stay away. I guess it doesn't like you that close.
Apparently.
Can you stick around for the discussion that we're gonna have with regard to the Northwest Industrial District?
Absolutely, I'll be
Any
here.
other questions for development? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll next hear from Shruti Shabera.
It's not gonna like her any better.
Whatever microphone problem we're having, speak up so the viewing public can hear you, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Shruti Chhabra, Director, Finney County Health Department. I'm here to request the board to consider, approve, and adopt a charter resolution number 0120/2024, which uses Home Rule Authority to exempt Finney County from a provision of KSA 65202. I can hear my echo, I'm sorry. The provision requires annual sanitary inspections of school buildings and grounds by the local health officer. Historically, local health officers have been required to perform school sanitary inspections. At the same time, there was also an ability for counties to opt out of such inspections using their statutory home rule authority. The Kansas legislature removed this home rule authority during the 2020 special session when implementing new law regarding COVID-19. The impact on school inspections was likely inadvertent, and in order to correct that impact, the Kansas legislature restored the ability for counties to opt out under home rule authority during the regular 2024 legislative session by House Bill 2754. We are requesting the board use their authority to opt out of annual school inspections in order to reduce the burden of regulatory compliance on local schools and also local health department. The annual inspection requirement needs considerable staff time, mileage, additional training for local health department staff. Currently, we do not have any sanitarian on staff. On the other hand, the annual inspection requirements do not add any meaningful oversight to school facilities. All county school facilities are subject to considerable oversight through internal mechanisms and external inspections. Some of the external inspections are Kansas Department of Agriculture for food safety, local fire department and state fire marshal for fire safety, Kansas Department of Labor for safety and health evaluations, Kansas Department of Health and Environment for safety and health evaluations. Finney County school districts and private schools have expressed support for the board's decision to opt out of annual sanitary inspections. It's also to be noted that the board will retain authority to require inspections when it deems necessary. For example, in the case of an outbreak, local health officers will continue to work collaboratively with local school authorities to identify and address any emergent public health issues. The requested resolution will solely opt out of the annual inspection requirement and does not renounce any public health authority or responsibility. The alternatives before you are to adopt Charter Resolution 01/2024 as presented. To not approve, alternative 2 is to not approve the charter resolution as presented and direct local health officers to conduct annual sanitary inspections for schools. Staff recommends option 1 to approve and adopt Charter Resolution 01/2024 as presented.
Questions from the commissioners? I have none.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve and adopt Charter Resolution 01-2024 as Trudy has presented it.
Is there a second?
Second, that needs one bit of clarification, does it not? Is that the right? That's not the first. It has school after it, right?
Well, it's the first charter resolution.
Okay.
So that, this is how they've numbered them in Finney County in the
I'll
past.
second his motion.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
We'll do a little bit of paperwork. Do we need a break? Commissioner Jones?
No, I'm fine.
Commissioner Jones?
Fine.
You need a briefcase so you look like an engineer.
I need a pocket protector, I guess.
Oh, pocket protector, okay. All right, good morning. Mr. Harper, please introduce yourself for the viewing public. We're going to take up Northwest Industrial Park improvements.
C.W. Harper with Kirk and Michael Engineering, acting county engineer. Here today to present for the Northwest Industrial Park Improvement Project. We're going to just walk through a little bit of history. The original property that was built here is the northern property, which is now Central Power. And then when the truck stop went in there, they had access to both US 50 and US 83. In 2010, when KDOT expanded US 50 and built the interchange there, they removed access to US 50 and basically forced all access off of US 83. As part of the agreement with KDOT in this purchasing of access, and that the properties were required to replat the area and fix all the access issues, this replatting never happened. The roadway and the infrastructure inside the development was created as a private and was to be maintained by the industrial district. In 2022, the industrial district was dissolved and Finney County took over maintenance. Simmons' current access is proposed, or I guess however you want to say it, is supposed to come by extending Solar Avenue from its current location there north up to their property on the north side of Central Power. This easement has been invaded by KDOT right-of-way, utilities, and it's really not a feasible access. And it doesn't really solve some of the problems that we have with Solar Ave. So we have to do something, there has to be something done to allow for Simmons to access their property. Currently, Solar Avenue is approximately 100 foot from the edge of the US 83 driving lane, edge of shoulder. If we superimpose this semi truck that we see there in the picture over onto Solar Ave, you can see that a semi truck setting there basically blocks access to Solar Avenue for additional trucks trying to make that turning movement. This is part of the safety issue. Currently, this isn't a huge issue because it's just Central Power's traffic coming from that direction and possibly some from the new truck sales, Bruckner's. With the development of the truck wash and any additional development that go in there, the number of trucks coming down Acra Way are just going to expand, and this is going to become a significant issue. Right now, Solar Avenue is routed through Travel America. Basically, part of the pumps at Travel America are Solar Avenue. It's the whole access only has a single access point. So if there was an emergency and something blocked off this intersection, there wouldn't be any other access into and out of this development. And this is basically a single, Solar Avenue is the only access for Travel America and the RV park there. So, the overall plan for the area would be to add the secondary side entrance for up on the north side. This is aligned with the approved entrance for the industrial park across the road. KDOT District 6 is okay with it. In theory, there's no formal approval, but they feel that it should be approved by KDOT and are supportive of it. Offsetting Solar Avenue slightly. We can't offset it a lot because of Bruckner's and their parking lot and their development. The way that they built their site limits how much we can move Solar Avenue. But we can offset it some to allow for storage of 2 tractor trailers there versus 1. Construct a new road, basically extending Solar Avenue where it is now down to the south of the TA parking lot and constructing a new road along the south of TA over to the RV park, basically removing Solar Avenue from the TA parking lot and providing future access to developments to the west of the RV park and providing better access to the RV park. This is on what is currently KDOT's right-of-way. Once again, talking to the district out here, they feel that they have some extra right-of-way and would be amendable to this to improve the safety aspect that we see out there. Building a new road along the west side of TA, connecting up to the north to the Simmons entrance. This provides internal connectivity and circulation. All this provides access to the Simmons truck property and also extending Acra Way to provide access to the Masterclass truck wash and the truck parking that they've proposed. The new north-south roadway would also provide access to the master truck parking that could basically be run off of that road versus through the truck wash. So it could provide him with better access and allow him to kind of separate those traffic flows. To accommodate masterclass truck wash, we're proposing to break this into 2 phases. Basically, phase 1 would be the improvement and rebuilding of Acroway and the expansion out to his property. Basically, we see this project as probably needing to be done whether we get the grant from KDOT or not. Essentially, he needs at least the expansion has to be done, if not the rebuilding of Acroway, but Acroway needs to be rebuilt and expanded upon. It's just a matter of when exactly we do it, and the sooner means less traffic that we have to contend with in the future. The timeline that we've put out there would basically be a contract for the design, basically in about a month, notice to proceed in January. We feel that we can, my designers don't like me very much for this one, but we think we can get the design done in about 4 months. They would prefer 6. Construction is probably about 4 to 6 months. This is the really iffy part, because we're basically going to be putting out plans in April. Most of your contractors are going to pretty much have a full dance card for their year in by April. So it could be kind of iffy on whether or not we can get a contractor that has the freedom and availability to basically construct this at that time. That is the biggest iffy part on this proposal. The PE costs, if the commission wants to proceed with this and basically go ahead and start with that before we get the design grant from, or the economic development grant from KDOT, any funds that we spend towards this could basically count towards the county's match on that grant. Phase 2 would be the remaining project and only be done if the grant was awarded. It could be either done as a separate contract or as a conditional part of the original agreement, where basically it doesn't kick in unless you get the grant. Probably it's a mix of which one is better. It's a little more of a writing of the contract for us if we do it that way, but it makes it easier because it's already in place and makes starting the design a little bit easier. Probably about 9 months to do the design for phase 2, and basically about 9 months to do the construction. So we'd basically be letting that phase 2 in the fall of next year, and then basically constructing it in 2026. Simmons has requested that we possibly look at including theirs as, doing a phase 2A and B, so that we do the northern portion first and then do the southern portion. I'd be on board with that idea, just simply to get them started also. Alright, our options for this is option A is the grand plan. Basically this full plan that I've proposed here to you, which is the rebuilding and extension of Acroway, the construction of the north entrance, the construction of, we call it Eclipse Ave for that north-south road. It's not an actual name, but makes it easy to refer to. Rebuilding and realigning Solar Avenue. Our total expected cost for this project, including the preliminary engineering, construction engineering, and construction, is $5.5 million. The local match of 25% works out to 1.375. And Simmons would contribute $360,000, and Masterclass Truck Wash would contribute $90,000, and Finney County would have the remaining $925,000. We'll talk to you a little bit about funding here in a second for that. Option B is just focusing on the new developments, which would be Simmons and Masterclass Truck Wash, and just doing the northern half. This would get you the secondary entrance and the access for Simmons, it does not basically fix the problems that we have with the existing Solar Avenue. We would look to retain an easement for the southern Eclipse Avenue, just so that if we have these problems that I foresee with Solar Avenue, we would not be backed into complete corner by when Masterclass finishes their construction and basically would block that possible road to the south. This one here has a total cost of $2.6 million. The local match is $650,000, with Simmons $360,000 and Masterclass is $90,000. Finney County's total is $200,000. And option C, I see this one as basically the we didn't get the grant, but we have to do it anyway option. Rebuilding and extending Acroway, we expect the total cost to be $1.1 million. Finney County's share would be $725,000, and Masterclass's share would be $375,000. This usually is kind of high, but that is, once again, including all of your PE, construction engineering, and construction. Masterclass has bids for his stuff which are quite a bit lower than that. I do have some concerns about his bids. They seem extremely low. One of the ones is he's got the earthwork spec'd out AB2, which we generally don't use AB2. We require AB1 or 3. So that might be some of that cost, but it's still, we don't know. The waiver, the staff doesn't recommend an approval at this time. Basically, he's not ready for construction at this point in time, so there's really no reason to look at the waiver. He doesn't have his site plan, his infrastructure plan, his building plan, or his road plans. The recommended requirement for the waiver would be the completed site plan, completed infrastructure plan, and a development agreement, identifying a construction entrance approved by KDOT, because we'll have to have a temporary construction easement or entrance for rebuilding of Acroway. And then basically setting the site elevations by a surveyor, because he won't have the road center line to basically set his site elevations off of. So, and we'll discuss the possibility of funding and doing this as a road improvement district. Essentially, that would be probably the easiest way to pay for the grand plan. Essentially, there's two different ways we could do the road improvement district. Would be either by frontage or by acreage. We have to have half of the parcels agree to it. Right now, obviously, we have Simmons and Masterclass are on board. The RV park has provided a letter of recommendation for the grant. We haven't given him any numbers as far as what exactly his portion would be or anything like that on this. So his interest in participating might or might not be, depending on what his numbers are. We have talked to TA previously about this, and they were, I guess, they didn't believe they had an access issue. I will say that currently they have an access issue. If you look at Solar Avenue out there, there's truck tires go through the ditch and knock down that stop sign constantly. I mean, currently the way Solar Ave doesn't really work very well. With the additional development to the west of this property, Solar Avenue is going to have significant access issues. So if we can get them on board, that would be great. It's just a matter of, I think they'll be on board probably 6 months after master class opens up and they have trucks blocking their access. But that'd probably be a little too late.
Okay, anything else from the engineer?
Well, Mr. Chairman, just, I look at this as a fairly thorough examination and some things that maybe should have been addressed in the past, but they weren't, so now's the best time to try to address them. So I appreciate the work you've gone through, CW, to do this presentation for us this morning.
Yeah, this has grown.
What is the timeline to get KDOT to agree to access on Eclipse north of the present 83 access that aligns with the corridor's access north of Acroway?
We'd basically have to do a traffic impact study for that. Usually 3 to 4 months.
And what is the timeline to get either a permanent easement or acquire title to the land inside the highway, the state of Kansas's right of way, in order to extend solar around to the south as presented?
I think we could do that within that 9-month design period. Like I said, the local KDOT office is on board with this. They see this as being an issue that needs to be corrected. But they do have some, if you look at the amount of right-of-way that they have on this side, on the west side of US 83 versus what they have on the east side, they have significantly more right-of-way on the west side than they do on the east side, so they have some extra there that they could give up. KDOT never necessarily likes to give up right away, but
Well, never underestimate the power of a donut. Because I went out there to look at this, and this is one of those deals that it appears that traffic now drives across TA's parking lot to get to the mobile home park.
yeah.
It appears that Solar Avenue ends at or near the edge of their property line. If I did my math correct down in the Register of Deeds office, of course that's online now, but will we be acquiring access from TA in order to extend Solar Avenue down to the newly acquired state access to come across to the south of TA? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I'm not for sure. Because Solar Avenue was part of the industrial development, and we'd possibly have to get some access from TA in order to basically take Solar Avenue there on that south end of their parking lot, out of their parking lot. Because right now it's, like I said, it is, Solar Avenue is in their parking lot.
Well, I think that it's really important to expand Acroway to get to the truck wash project and continue development in the area. But I think the capital investment of both the mobile home park, Bruckner's, and TA is also important for us to keep in mind when we're going to be asking for title in order to build a public road. And I think we're going to be taking some of TA's parking lot in order to do that. And I'm not the surveyor and I'm not the engineer, sir, but I'm just a dumb old lawyer that looks at these and goes, that looks to me like we're gonna have access, we're gonna have to have some land from them in order to have public access across that.
Well, currently, Solar Avenue is not inside of Solar Avenue's easement. So there needs to be some cleaning up of that. This is part of that KDOT agreement that area need to be replatted to allow for the easement, and never happened. Essentially, all of these plats needed to be corrected, and it just never happened. Nobody's ever forced
Would I
this
be
issue.
wrong in saying that the extension and development of Solar Avenue would be of substantial benefit to TA if we
Yes.
were to also build Eclipse at the same time so that we wouldn't have an interruption of access to the premises?
Yes. I mean,
If we're going to consider this, it seems to me that we have to have Eclipse in the project in order to have access to their area, because we need to rebuild solar correctly.
yes.
Because right now, what we have isn't going to be able to be useful during that construction period. So, to me, Eclipse is really important so that TA can continue all of its operations, Mobile Home Park continue all of its operations while we're building solar. And Acroway is the first part of it, to get it extended and so forth. I'm critically unaware of the need for the second entrance north of Acroway. Why is that a design issue or a safety issue?
The property to the north of Master Class basically has no access currently. With the way things are platted, their access is an extension of Solar Avenue along US 83 up through there, but there's power poles. KDOT's kind of made that a very narrow easement with the 83 turning lanes and stuff like that that have gone in there. There's electrical risers in it. There's really no way to put a road through there without significant cost due to utility relocations and impacting central power. So essentially, their property is, they originally were trying to get access at that field entrance up there, and KDOT denied that one. So, but with the property, the industrial park across the street, KDOT has agreed to a secondary access basically across from this proposed one, and feels that KDOT wants to limit it to a right-in, right-out access, but it still allow access and have the roadway into the property.
Well, I agree with offsetting the Solar Avenue intersection, and that we need to rebuild Solar Avenue and have access around to the south. And that in order to do that, we need to have Eclipse in order so that you can use this property during our construction phase. But how we get all of that pieced together and the timeline to get it done, especially where there's a really good need to extend Acroway and get it built now, and we have the chance for grant money, and I have mixed a lot of 3 different things together, but grant money seems pretty important to me as a taxpayer, and that we ought to get after it and get KDOT access issues secured before we get the cart too far in front of the horse. You had something to say, Mackenzie?
Thank you. Mackenzie Phillips, Development Administrative Coordinator. So I just want to give you a little bit more background on that Simmons Pump property to the north, the reason why we have that entrance to the north. Before Master Class Truck Wash came and approached us, Simmons Pump had purchased that property to the north, and not realizing that they didn't have proper access to that property to construct. So they approached us about finding some possible funding opportunities. So through that, we did find, we looked at both the cost share program from KDOT as well as the economic development program. Since they were going to be creating more jobs with this new location, and because of the safety factor in the area, that's why we started looking at this whole grand plan to really try to incentivize KDOT to grant us that funding. So the Simmons Pump was the original driver of this whole plan that you see before you. Then when Billy came and approached us, we're like, well, this is a great opportunity as well to add this as part of that grant application. And plus, it's creating new jobs in the area, and that's one of the key factors that they look at for that grant. So that's part of the reason why it's very critical that crucial that we feel at least that it should be the Simmons and the access to the masterclass truck wash. Those are the two key projects that we really want to accomplish with this grant application. We also wanted to improve the safety, as CW was talking about, and that's why we added that second half, that south half of the project.
So you're looking at, basically, option B is what you want as the main one to start.
We would recommend option C going forward with that whole plan, or option A, sorry, option A, thank you, option A. I got mixed up for a second, yeah, option A, but if you choose not to move forward with the whole grand plan, we would strongly recommend at least going with option B.
But if you choose one of these options, that doesn't mean you're not going to complete the whole grand plan, as you say.
I mean, we'd leave, even choosing option B, basically you kind of have that option to finish the grand plan. I don't know how much you can go back to the KDOT well and get the funding again.
Okay, I was assuming that the grant was the same amount for all the options, or not?
No. Basically, we're asking KDOT to cover 75% of the total cost.
That makes a difference.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, sir.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to hear our administrator chime in on this with regard to the funding part of it, not as much about the engineering part, but the Plan A, Plan B grant, and some of those kind of things. I would love to hear your observations with regard to the funding mechanisms.
As CW pointed out, there is one option to create a street improvement district to have them contribute a certain amount to that. And the Board of County Commissioners can make a determination of what those amounts might be. Other than that, then you're looking at perhaps tapping into your incentive fund, which is sitting there with about $925,000 in there, but I think there's certain stipulations on what it's to be used for. And then you've got some monies in that BRMP sales tax fund. Keep in mind, you're currently using that for 3 different projects. One of them is a little bit for EMS, Health Department EMS. Another is to retire the debt on the HVAC system, and the other is some road improvement projects, just simply things such as asphalt overlay and things of that nature. So you do have, if you choose to fund it internally, you're going to have to tap into 2 or 3 different funds depending on the dollar amount. I think you may want to consider placing an application for the entire project in front of KDOT, and also bolstering the fact that the truck stop just currently went through renovation of it and leveraging the employment there as well. So you have some options there that I know this group has been working on.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Robert? Yes, sir.
I have a question, Mr. County Administrator. The Sewer District 4, if that's what we're going to call it, does that in any way fit into this same scenario where there could be a common funding for both, for infrastructure? Am I making sense?
Are you talking about the current improvements being done at that lift station up there now? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, my thoughts are, the properties are common to the Sewer District 4 and what we're trying to get roadways to here. And so could there be some common funding for that infrastructure?
There may be an opportunity. I know that the governor's come out with a $6 million program currently, and it's not just for road and road infrastructure, road and bridge infrastructure. It seems to be for a lot broader scope. So we may be able to look at seeing if they would fund, and that project is, for that pump station was probably $750,000 to $1 million.
And I have an observation, Mr. Chairman. Yesterday happened to drive out by TA. You need to go by there about noon hour and see that parking lot. I'd be real surprised if they'd be willing to give up any of it, because they had folks parked everywhere going to that restaurant. It's a busy place.
Well, it is, and however, it's an economic driver, and it needs our close attention, but there's also really good opportunity for expansion in the northwest quarter of that. And we need to get roads there, and the best way to do that is part policy and part economic development. To me, the policy side of it is if we choose to do a road benefit district, what are the mechanics of getting that done, Robert?
You'll craft a position of all the landowners there for that will be touched by those improvements. And you'll need 51% of those in order to act on that. And within that petition, you'll identify specifically either what percentage of the cost would be back to those landowners or what dollar amount is. And as CW pointed out, you would probably do it on based upon two standards. There's actually three, and one is on a per lot basis, but the other is square footage, and the other, of course, is frontage.
Plan that we have in front of us, I'm back to the engineer now, is that Simmons wants to pay $360,000. Is that a verbal commitment, or do we have it in writing?
I think it's a verbal commitment. I don't think they want to pay that, but they're willing to pay that.
Master truck wash at $90,000, has the
Yeah.
company committed to it, or is this just a
Think-
handshake?
Okay.
And so the question that I have then is that if we did a road benefit district, how would that change their cost? Do we know that comparison, that analysis of what they want to do voluntarily versus what we would impose on them if we did a road district?
I don't think CW's run those numbers yet, and he can run them two different ways, either by square footage or by frontage in this case.
Well, I think we ought to know that number. I don't know how to do the policy right without being fair to the landowners that want to get the development done, and to the rest of the taxpayers who, under this master plan, want us putting $925,000 into it. It'll take a while to get that amount of money recovered in ad valorem tax from the improvement and the growth. So if we're gonna do the road district, we ought to know what that cost is for fairness to the landowners. And the present landowners are gonna benefit from it. And one of our real concerns sitting up here is that sometimes it takes too long to get stuff done. But at the same time, this one's been around for quite a while. And so, the long and the short of it is that if we're going to make the decision to go with this voluntary approach, we ought to have something in writing to secure it for the taxpayers, us, the county, that these are gonna be the actual incurred indebtedness of Master Class and Simmons, and that we're gonna commit to this, and we have a period of time that we're gonna seek and find the grant, because I'm unwilling personally, as one member of the board, to say we're gonna fund it at 5.5 million without a grant. I'm unwilling to do that. So, what's the time frame to secure the grant and the right-of-way and the 2 access points, making sure that it lines up with the improvements that are being done across the street so that we don't have off-lined intersections to the east?
The access point across 83 has been platted, and so we know, as long as they don't change it, in which if they change it, then KDOT's preliminary agreement to that entrance would also go away, and they'd have to basically try and get an agreement from KDOT again. So basically where their current one is, or where that north entrance is, we know that, where the proposed location is. So lining that up isn't a big issue. Improving, just simply doing phase C or option C and improving the Ackerway driveway may or may not improve access to Solar Avenue, because essentially you're going to widen it out. So you're going to give a little bit more room for the trucks to maneuver. But if they're a left-turning truck, they might actually reduce the amount of room that the truck has to maneuver versus increasing it. But probably the saving grace of that intersection currently is that most of our truck traffic is turning and making a right-hand turn and headed south. So otherwise, we'd probably have much more issues than we have currently.
Okay, more questions?
Well, just a follow-up question, Mr. Chairman, to our administrator or CW, either one. To form the district, the road district, 51% of the landowners have to agree to that. How many landowners do we have total? I mean, you've named two or three, or four, but do we have several more than that? So it'd be 51% of what number?
7. Simmons, Central Power, Bruckner's, TA, RV, Master Class, and
But is there any vacant?
Brooklyn. Oh, okay, so that's actually 8.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, if there's some vacant landowners.
But the second owner just owns west of the RV park, and
They own a piece, and then there's an outside.
I said, do they own some up there?
There's
Okay.
a piece that runs along the rail, and then an L shape that comes in.
Yeah, so
8,
8,
so he'd have to have 5.
yeah.
In order to apply for the grant, how specific do we have to be as to that we want to do a road benefit district in the grant application, or can we make the grant application and then decide the road benefit district?
KDOT doesn't care how you pay your half, it's just that you're paying your half, or your quarter, your share. Yeah. Your share.
So the grant, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry about jumping in. So the grant or the grant criteria is based on safety and jobs, and is that, or what's the primary criteria?
Yeah, basically safety and jobs, I think, are the primary criteria. Is it's got to be increasing the employment in the area because it's economic development.
And that's what,
But safety is a big factor of it also, which is a lot of what we're looking to try and clean up here is safety. And I have strong concerns about TA and their future revenues and everything else if we don't do something with Solar Avenue. With the truck stop going across the street and all that, if this is truly if it's impacting access and everything else and people have a hard time getting to TA, KDOT's not going to be real happy, because if we have truck traffic backing up onto 83, that's a huge safety concern, which would potentially happen. Trucks are going to basically avoid them and go across the street. So it's going to impact them as far as economically. And like you said, right now, that parking lot is completely packed. They're having a very good economic current situation with the Black Bear Cafe and all that.
Well, it appears that they would have the most frontage. If
They
you
would-
do it on a frontage value for a road district.
They are probably the largest share either way that you do it. Master classes portion might increase if you do it by frontage, because they're getting a road on the north side and on the east side. Simmons is probably going to go down from their 360, and if you do it by acreage, Central Power is a fairly large lot, so that one might actually be more by acreage versus by frontage, but I'm not real sure with
Well, where we don't
pressure
have
numbers.
to do all the road district to apply for the grant and to speed things up, I would think we'd apply for the grants and then worry about the road district. Yeah, you start working on those.
And the grant we want to apply for is option A?
I guess if
The
you're,
whole Monty.
yeah, if you're,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
And to me, that includes the extension of Solar Avenue, or not Solar, but Eclipse to the south also.
Yeah.
And you'll have a lot of square footage or frontage or acreage determinations, but I would ask the administrator and engineer and economic development to get together and figure out what recommendation is going to be made to us to do the road benefit district. Because I think those landowners out there have substantial opportunity to have economic value invested in them as well as their district, and the taxpayers should be able to offset that by the creation of a road benefit district. And at the same time, we need to do some kind of cost-benefit analysis for future production and future revenues from that economic development. So, do you need resolution from us as far as make the grant application on Plan A, or do you need something else?
Just need your formal approval to make application for the grant.
Any other questions for the engineer? All right, we'll hear from Economic Development.
Commissioners, Lana Duval, President and CEO of Finney County Economic Development. Absolutely agree. This has been out there a long time. We first brought a presentation to you in 2013 to attempt to remedy some of the challenges with the way this property was allowed to develop. It is an unfortunate, perfect example of what happens when we don't force planning all the way through the process. So we do have existing businesses who will be impacted by the decisions that are made based on this. However, I would encourage you to get traffic impact studies ahead of applying for the grant, because I'm not entirely sure that once a little more investigation is done, that you've this is for certain the best opportunity to remedy the situation. There are things in play on adjacent properties that will also play into this, that would be taken into consideration if a traffic impact study was done, but will not be based on the information as it's presented here. Certainly not because we're trying to keep secrets, but we've not been involved in any way in this project. But I would also encourage you to, with the economic development grant through KDOT, we've been successful in getting those grants, large economic development grants. There is no set time to apply for the economic development grants. Those are designed specifically to meet the demands of projects that are looking to move in. So you apply whenever the project is in hand, if you will, and then the state has a commitment to respond within 30 days to your application. So there is no rush to get an application in for the economic development side of this. However, again, I would ensure that what you're asking for is going to solve the problem, not just now, but long-term. And without those traffic impact studies and some conversations around the other projects that we know are imminent in the area, that likely will not happen if you rush into an application for that.
Questions for economic development?
A traffic impact study, you're talking about traffic not only west of 83, but east of 83 also?
Potentially, but certainly the two projects that you're considering, that they're suggesting for the economic development grant side of this, which is Simmons Pump and Master Class Truck Wash, those two projects should certainly have their traffic impact studies in place. I think that once those impacts are a little better determined, instead of just what we think might happen, that will help in those conversations with the truck stop when they can see how the best guesses at traffic flow are going to impact them. It's going to be a lot easier for them to understand why they should be a part of paying additional taxes in order to help remedy this. Again, the county, we brought this back in 2013 to try to address all of this because the KDOT issues had not been resolved.
Who initiates the impact study?
That's a requirement of the development. So the county or whoever whether they're having those conversations with the projects or whether NDS is having those projects with the projects, they should be having those traffic impact studies requested and in place before moving forward. If you remember, we did a significant traffic impact study for the Western Kansas corridor across the road from this, to CW's comments about the secondary entrance that is slated potentially for Western Kansas corridor. The reason we did not encourage the developer to build that entrance was because there was still a lot of unknown about how that would ultimately develop. So we encouraged them to only build the first access and wait until we had a better idea of who the end users would be before securing a second entrance. So there is at this point, a very good chance that the second entrance will never be built, simply because it's likely not going to be necessary based on the end user that's considering that property. So we've been careful in the county. We have taken pretty great pride in not building bridges to nowhere, if you will. We design the infrastructure to meet the needs of the projects that are looking. In this situation, there is a lot of undeveloped land that you're creating access for, should you opt to do this route. But as far as I'm aware, there's been no discussion with the landowners of that undeveloped property to determine what role they would play in this development. In 2013, that was the ask. We went through the traditional channels and followed the philosophy that's precedented for development in the county, where we go to the private owners who are going to benefit the most from the development and attempt to work with them, utilizing tools that certainly improve their opportunities to get it done, but they are going to have significant economic benefit if this is done. And it would be unusual for this body to make a complete a complete turnaround and 180, if you will, from what you've traditionally done regarding development. And I think that should be pretty well considered before you make a decision on that.
All right, the length of time to do a highway study is important, but grant application is also important. So which cart and horse, help me out, what should we do first?
The grant application is open. They prefer to do it quarterly. The next opening is basically in December. They will review them outside of that quarterly, but they prefer to do them quarterly. The TIS is probably going to take a couple months to get it through KDOT's approval and everything else. I actually did the TIS for Simmons when they were requesting access from at the field entrance. So I have most of that one in place. We have the one for the Northwest Kansas corridor is already kind of in place and could be incorporated into a TIS for this site. I do think if we did a 3D microsimulation model and presented that to TA, that might help with their understanding of the issue and just how much it was going to impact their current access.
CW, if we had on Acra Way, right-hand turn only.
Yeah.
And then build solar and solar out to 83 and left turn only. Would that alleviate some of the traffic concerns?
Okay, Acra Way
is east-west road.
East-west road, and where are you?
And Acra
bringing
Way at 83
solar
right turn only, and we have essentially a big roundabout that Eclipse comes out to 83, and it would be left turn only to the north.
So the Simmons access would be left turn only.
Right, and they can come down to Acra Way and turn right.
And
it seems to me that that's the easiest way to get KDOT to understand that we're controlling traffic better.
The issue there is that our access to Northwest Kansas corridor across the way is full, Western Kansas corridor, is full access, and if that becomes signaled, it makes more sense to have your full access at Acra Way for the west side also. And that intersection's already got
unfair competition over the west side, basically.
Yeah, and also the intersection at Acra Way has already got all the highway improvements with turning lanes and everything else. So,
Good, gentlemen. The traffic impact study that was done for Western Kansas corridor did leave open the opportunity to signalize Acra Way with an expectation that further development on either side of the highway could lead to the need for that to be a signalized in the intersection, which, as in the development agreement, is set aside that would be a function, paying for that would be a function of whoever's impacting the traffic, if you will. So these traffic impact studies, because currently they do require access off of Acra Way, those will weigh in to the determination of whether or not KDOT requires signalization at that intersection. So none of this can really be done until you can demonstrate how it's going to be impacted. And again, the fact that you have a lot of vacant property remaining in the Northwest Industrial, former Northwest Industrial Park, that property needs to be considered as well, because you do have rail access on that side of the highway. You do not have rail access on the Western Kansas corridor side. As you're aware, we have a lot of projects that, because of rail access, we're able to secure here. So there's just a lot unanswered in this proposal. Unfortunately, we have projects waiting, right? Simmons Pump was, when we met with them in October of 2023, we did make them aware that if they opted to go with this side of the highway, they would be responsible for creating access to their property. We were very upfront with them, that the corridor project was underway and what the status was there. So they chose to pay less for their land with an understanding that it was going to cost them more for infrastructure. That's the conversation we have with all projects. There's a trade-off there. So I would just, again, caution a quick decision that may or may not be a good long-term solution.
All right, Mackenzie, did you have anything else?
Yes, so I just wanted to mention too that, I don't know if it's been mentioned yet, that north entrance would be a right in, right out only entrance. It wouldn't be a full entrance. That would mimic what was going to be proposed with Western Kansas Corridor. And this one, in preliminary talks with KDOT, they did mention that even if that one didn't go in Western Kansas Corridor, that this one would still most likely be approved because of the safety aspect of not having more than one entrance into this development. So just so you know, that is going to be just a right in, right out only. And then I also want to let you know that we have had preliminary discussions with a majority of the property owners. They are aware of this grand plan of what we're proposing. There hasn't been additional talks about like the road improvement district or anything like that, but they are aware that this is a potential project coming down the line.
All right, very good. Questions for Mackenzie? Commissioners? All right, I think that we should take up the issue of authorizing the application for the grant and consideration of the traffic impact. And what's the timeline of doing the traffic impact?
So he said it's a couple months or something.
Yeah, probably a couple months. We're collecting traffic data right now on Solar Avenue. It's more of just working out all of the potential developments and generating traffic basically doing traffic generation and assignment and applying it with our existing traffic there, and then incorporating the one from across the street as well. Basically reviewing it to see what exactly assumptions they made for this side already, and kind of making sure that we're not doubling up on anything.
All right, Mr. Administrator, do you have some recommendations for us as to whether we should apply for the grant, wait to the traffic impact, or do both?
Well, I think you have an opportunity to go ahead and do both at this point in time.
Any other discussion from the commissioners? All right, is there a motion to approve the grand plan option A and do traffic assessment and apply for the grant at the same time?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
Moved and seconded to do the grand plan A as presented by Kirkham Michaels with the traffic impact study. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Good luck. Would also like to ask that a study be done as to the impact of a road improvement district with the owners, and an analysis done of the anticipated cost to those owners so that we can get that firmly in mind, so that if the grant is granted, we can start moving forward with the creation of the district and what impact that would have on the owners. When can that be done?
That should be able to be done by next commission meeting.
That was fast.
Well, it's basically just going through and figuring out frontage for each property and breaking up acreages and putting it all into a table.
Very good. Anything else on that, Mr. Administrator? I think we should do that.
No, I would agree.
All right, let's get it done.
Okay.
Right.
I can go.
Now it's time for a break. We will convene at 10:45, and we'll hear from the new handbook from Ms. Kelly Bunyan, Director of Human Resources. Next, hear from Kelly Munyon, Director of Human Resources. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. So this morning, the board is being asked to adopt the recently updated Finney County Employee Handbook, formerly known as the Finney County Personnel Policy. On February 20th, 2024 and September 16th, 2024, department directors and elected officials met with the board during work sessions to review and discuss recommended changes to the current personnel policy after many months of working with legal counsel on an updated version to very outdated policies and procedures. Some updates and additions that were made include but are not limited to, the main thing was rearranging that policy for ease of updating in the future. We updated some classifications, some rehire considerations, added a lactation policy, updated complaint procedures, anti-violence policies, dress code and uniform policies, pregnancy accommodation, religious accommodation, cancellation of work policy was updated, KPNF information was added. We did add in the PTO, extended sick leave, shared leave, bereavement, holiday worked policies. And then we also added or updated some appendices to the employee handbook to include the smoke-free workplace resolution, employee travel and training policy, the FMLA poster, social media and website, and drug and alcohol testing policy. So from those work sessions, the board had given directives on additional changes and or clarifications. We did work with legal counsel. All changes requested by the board were made and are being presented today. Once adopted, all Finney County employees will receive a copy to review, sign off, and acknowledge that they have received and an understanding of. So before I talk through the alternatives, I did provide the 7 of you with one additional amendment that happened after that final clean version was updated. Uploaded by the clerk. So this is our first year to be in the PTO model, and so this is our first November to do a rollback of carryover. And when we went through that conversion back in January, it was my staff's understanding and myself that that would be able to take place on November 1st, and that is not the case. It has to actually happen on the pay date that includes November 1st. So I just need to change that wording a little bit there. Other than that, everything else would be the same as discussed prior. So the alternatives before you today would be to adopt the employee handbook as presented with an effective date of December 1, 2024. Again, with the changes that I had just discussed. Or to not adopt the employee handbook and direct staff on additional changes and or additions. Staff's recommendation would be option 1, adopt the employee handbook as presented with an effective date of 12/1/2024. No additional fiscal impact. All the policy impact is noted throughout the document. Any questions from any of you?
Commissioners?
It appears that you've put in a lot of time and thought and effort, so I commend you on that. I have no specific questions as to the policy itself.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be prepared to offer a motion.
I would, as long as it includes that the amendments that are presented today, sir.
Will. I'll move the approval of option 1 with the inclusion of the amendment that was before us on the November 1 question.
With an effective date of December 1 of 2024?
Yes, sir.
Part of your motion, Dave?
Yep, it is.
All right. And I would ask movement and second whether it is required that each employee sign and acknowledge the new handbook.
If you'd like that in the motion, I'll include that.
Is that all right for the second? Sure. And Kelly, it'll start with me. I'll be the first person to sign it.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Handbook approved by council. Madam County Counselor.
This did go through Hinkle law as far as that part of it goes, as far as the long-term toxin discussions with that. But beyond that, yes, from me.
Mr. Administrator. That's a nice, short, direct answer. Thank you, sir. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have a new handbook. And if you get me a clean version of it, I'd be glad to sign.
I'll have one today. Thank you.
The finishing up of our canvas of results will be at 2 o'clock today. So let's go down through the rest of our agenda and hear from Mackenzie on the development update, please.
Good morning again, Chairman and Commissioners. So I only have one update for you today over Country Acres. I spoke with the contractor this morning, and he's not going to be able to do much today with the rain, but all he has left to do basically is to seed and do some, it's called crimp mulching on the south drainage ditch. And after that, we'll go out and inspect it, get signs up there, and I think we'll be ready to go in the next couple, either the next one or the second meeting in December to accept infrastructure.
Questions for Mackenzie? I'm still trying to get through the handbook. Go ahead.
My question is just on Randall Estates, we had our motion last meeting and so forth, and so that's all been completed, the signatures and everything that's been necessary for that?
Yes, everything's been completed. He can start pulling building permits. He was actually given permission to pull building permits before acceptance. He chose to wait a little longer, but yeah, he's working on, he's probably going to be doing like a spec home. And then he's going to, there's a couple people that are interested in properties that are going to build soon, so.
Didn't realize he was thinking about a spec home. Yeah, okay, thank you.
We have one of those out at Southwind also, and there's several others going around town, and
Yeah.
so it's
Mhm.
quite an investment by developers.
Yeah.
To do that. If no other questions, we'll go on down the line. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Department monthly reports, Mr. Administrator.
Nothing addition to what you have in front of you.
Okay.
My report, real briefly, sewer district modernization program is 75% complete at this point in time. Still looking at the end of January for final completion on that project. Also on our list, the Goldberg Group has moved all of their information over to Hutton Construction for his estimates on that project for the Health Department EMS project. I would imagine that we will have something quite possibly right before Thanksgiving from Hutton Construction on those estimates. LEC, you'll have a presentation on December 2nd, according to Sean's last email, which was on Friday. So we'll continue to move on that. Of course, we have the KAC coming up in Wichita. I think you have many department heads going to that. KDOT local consult, the results of that and how they scored them. That is on December 5th there in Dodge City at the Boot Hill Casino Conference Center. So we have that. Treasurer's remodel, still waiting on contracts for that project. And Kaylee's just a little behind on roads now with all that rain.
What a problem.
Yeah. That's all I have for you this morning.
If you would, turn to page 212 of our packet. Road and bridge budget for 2024 was 5.992. Annual budget used is 54%. Is that through the end of October, or is that through the end of September, sir?
That would be through the end of October.
All right, and is one of the things we've done in the past is unused portion of those budget, then put it over into
Special Special
Special
highway.
fund for the
Yeah.
highway fund.
Yeah, they've not purchased any major equipment this year. One, because of lack of time to spec it out. So that portion of it would go over to their special equipment fund. The other is, other remaining dollars set aside, as long as we don't go below what we anticipate needing for the beginning fund balance of next year. The rest of that will go into the special highway fund to help fund projects in the future.
That's what we've done in the past, isn't it?
Correct. And usually it takes about 3 years to accumulate enough money to do like a chip mill and overlay.
Do we make those transfers the second meeting in December or wait till January?
I think we usually wait until the first meeting in January, just for the mere fact that we'll have a lot of the information in by then.
All right. Very good. Other questions for the administrator? County Counselor?
Update on the tax sale for you. I did file it with the courts or attempt to file it with the courts on Thursday. There was a technical problem, I guess, and I got notified of the rejection of my filing about end of day Friday. Wasn't enough time to actually get the new numbers and plug them into the petition, because it's when you file it with the redemption amount is current as of the day of filing, so it would be different on Friday, so I couldn't just resubmit it at that point. So I just have to plug those back in, and I'm actually going to file that today. There were, at the time of filing, there are 16 properties that are left that are eligible still at this point in time for that tax sale. So that will get resubmitted again today.
Anything else?
Done some preliminary work for council for the city. We had approved that NDS contract within the NDS agreement. There's some further things that we need to do now, so just started working on that with Mr. Demermuth and various other projects going forward, but that's it for today.
All right. Questions for the counselor?
What's your total tax sale monies as of the filing date?
If you make me do math.
No, you can give me an estimate.
She's taking her shoes off.
Thanks for the help.
Lots of help from the accountant. Got a 10 key?
Thanks for the question, Larry.
I would guess, just trying to do my rough math here with everybody talking, it's like 350 to 400,000.
Okay. That's, just needed an estimate. Sizable.
But that's pales in comparison to the amount that you've requested and the number of properties when you started.
Correct. We've gone down significantly since the.
I think it was 40-some properties initially, wasn't it?
Correct. There's been a lot that, there's been some work going into to get some of these paid.
Yeah.
Hopefully, even after, I know that there are some of them, I think there's probably, there's a pretty good indication that some of these probably will go all the way through to sheriff's sale. Some I'm hopeful maybe will get paid off along the way in the process, so we'll see.
All right, wonderful. Community events, meetings, Dory?
I did add the showcase stuff.
Saw that.
You had been asking for. But no, I didn't have anything critical.
Right, under community events, that's wonderful. And also on the 10th of November, the Marine Corps did celebrate its anniversary. I noticed they're having their ball on December 10th. All right. Anything else? We're going to meet at 2. This commission need to meet at 2 in order to assemble as the Board of Canvassers.
Yes.
All right. Then we'll go to commissioner reports, and we'll go left to right.
I'm going to surprise you. I have nothing to report. The library board meeting, this is canceled due to the holiday being near the meeting date, the Thanksgiving holiday. And local emergency planning committee did not meet because our emergency manager was ill. Has anybody heard how he's doing? He's recovering. Okay. He apparently had surgery, and so they canceled the meeting. So no report.
All right, very good. And Mr. Pishney, Commissioner Pishney, excuse me, it's soon to be Representative Pishney.
Orlon, yeah.
Sir?
Mine's been just attending various meetings, but I was invited recently to a Purple Heart ceremony up at the cemetery for the last name is Keep, K-E-E-P, and it was nicely done by our American Legion and some others. Attended a couple of Veterans Day ceremonies, one at Garden Valley Retirement Village and one out at the community college about the Tuskegee Squadron or whatever that was called. That was really informational and really helps you appreciate our country and the people who have gone on before us in serving our military. Attended a showcase in Dodge City last week, and I don't know what their total number was, but it was in the Civic Center, and that floor in the Civic Center was full of kids and their students, I should say, and a number of businesses, including Empirical, were over there. Had several legislative meetings that we've attended over the last couple of weeks as well. And then lastly, I know that we received the information from KAC, but just for board member benefit, they're looking for a board representative for the Kansas County Commission Association from this area, and they're also looking for two representatives that we could fill out in this area. One is KAC board member for this District 6, but also the rural representative for Kansas on the KAC board, and I've made note of that to several of the rural counties around here that qualify for that rural candidate. But and those two positions, for the most part, were due to a couple of commissioners being defeated in the last election. Not by chosen resignations. So we need to continue to have Southwest Kansas represented on both KCCA and KAC.
Vice Chairman, do you have a report, sir?
Yes, I had a couple of things. Had an economic lifelines meeting, and they're getting their game plan together for when the new folks get to Topeka, and so that's where that one is headed. Also, I've had several calls from landowners that are questioning Idea Tech in their right-of-way intrusion upon the right-of-ways with their fiber optic cables, and they're complaining that they are notifying them of a private gas line or private water line and saying it's approximately here. And they're saying, well, we're not responsible because it's not on one dig. So I don't know if there's anything we can do since it's in.
I had a little personal experience with that.
In the public right of way, or what? Because they say when they contact Idea Tech, they're not getting any help or response, even though they damaged the line. Okay. Because this one landowner was very perturbed because he said, this is where the line is, and they damaged it and then didn't bother to pay for it or help fix it or do anything about it. So there, there's a lot of these older lines that have been that are in the county right away years and years ago that were there long before the county improved the roadways. So it's going to be. Did Did we sign an agreement with Idea Tech when they wanted to go down our right of way?
Utilities are exempt from that.
Utility right of way? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I might,
That may help, so, but I mean, ask them, see what we can do, because I've had several calls about it.
Commissioner Pishney.
well, Larry, I'll share a couple of Idea Tech phone numbers with you because they've been out in our subdivision and we've got a mess in our alleys and the easements and so forth. And they have hit a couple of things, water and electric. And they've been very responsive out in our area.
Give me the contacts and
I'll give you
forward them.
I'll give you a couple of the numbers that they can call. But no, it's Robert and I were talking about that just because of the mess out in our subdivision, and they have the right to go wherever.
We'd had a little, they crossed one of our water lines over there on River Road, and we'd notified them and told them exactly where it was, and they were very responsive then, but maybe he was not contacting the proper people.
Well, and our water thing was the fact that our subdivision people who own the water hadn't flagged everything, plus they were saying, well, we think it's so deep, but we don't know, and it wasn't that deep, so. But they've been taking care of most all the issues out there when we contact them.
Commissioner Davey Jones, you had a comment on Idea Tech?
Well, they got about 40 feet of a gas line going to my shop that was on the alley side of my fence, but in my case, the fire department was notified because we had gas fumes in the air and just a little bit, the pipeline company, the natural gas company were there, and Peoples, or Black Hills now, I guess, they replaced my line, and I asked if I was gonna get a bill, and they said, no, they would bill Idea Tech, or their drilling company. So I had no problem. I got it repaired.
The report that I wish to make is that Compass continues to maintain employment above 300 employees. I didn't make it to last month's meeting, although I did review the agenda and so forth. Compass has grown incredibly in the last 2 years under the future and now permanent designation as CCHBC mental health facility in our community. The continued alliance between the Board of County Commissioners and Compass for mental health counseling and availability for our employees is important. We continue to develop that. I attended the Sales Tax Oversight Committee, for which I chair. We had another opportunity to review the status of the work at the new fire station and EMS center. EMS director was there and gave us a review. A lot of things going on with our EMS, with the new development of the EMS center and health department building on the west side, on 8th and Mary, and then on the east side within the new fire station number 3 over on Schulman and Jenny Barker, I believe, if I got the names correct, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's an incredible facility that we're building with taxpayer money from the form of sales tax rather than ad valorem tax. All of the money of the new fire station is being paid for by a sales tax that was specially approved by the Kansas legislature in the amount of a 30-cent sales tax. And there's a joint interlocal agreement between the county and the city in the operation and collection, payment, and construction of the projects as authorized by that 30-cent sales tax. All right, I don't have anything further. Yes? Would you come up and use the microphone so that we would have all of those? Kelly, would you also explain your position with the showcases?
So I'm just newly on the board with the Showcase, so I sit in on their meetings and hope to be able to start attending them. I've already had a lot on my calendar, so I haven't been to these last 2, but moving forward, I hope to be able to attend them and get a little bit more involved than I am today. So we do have the health one coming up in February that I know of, and then the city-county essential services will be April 2nd. So I'm going to go ahead and start getting a kickoff with the city and county again here before too long.
Showcase is at?
Ours, the essential showcase is at the fairgrounds. The health one, I don't recall off the top of my head. So,
Yeah.
Backwards. Oh, there you go.
The,
Next page.
the healthcare is February 6th at the fairgrounds, and the 20th is the career showcase, multi-career. And April 2nd is the career showcase, city-county essentials at the Finney County Fairgrounds.
correct, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, you're
And how many kids did we have?
So
Students and others?
in Dodge City, we had 15 districts represented, so we did get some new districts. 216 students, 17 sponsors, 20 businesses, and 5 colleges. And then just a couple weeks prior in Mineola, we had 151 students, 11 sponsors, 14 businesses, 5 colleges, and 3 county sponsors at that one. So,
Any other questions for Kelly? All right,
thank you, thank you.
Anything else, Madam Clerk? All right, we need to recess until 2 o'clock, and then we'll meet at 2 as a Board of County Commissioners, then take up the issue of the final certification as a Board of Canvassers, and at that time, we'll adjourn after we've completed our work as Board of Canvassers. So we'll be on recess now until 2 o'clock.
Oh, it's raining. That means we're in the gym, not on the theater. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to traditions, I don't know.
I've got to,
I've got other
things
commitments.
I got to
so,
do.
yeah.
Okay.
So, sorry, guys.